Reading from Granthara Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, last verse of the chapter 44. Etavan eva lokesmin pumsham nishreyaso yadaya tivrena bhakti yogena ayarpitam sthiram etavan eva lokesmin pumsham nishreya sodayam tivrena bhakti yogena manomayarpitam sthiram etavaneva lokesmin pumsham nishreya sodayam tivrena bhakti yogena ayarpitam sthiram tavaneva lokesmin pumsham nishreya sodayam tivrena bhakti yogena manomayarpitam sthiram etavaneva lokesmin pumsham nishreya sodayam tivrena bhakti yogena manomayarpitam sthiram etavaneva lokesmin pumsham nishreya sodayam tivrena bhakti yogena manomayarpitam sthiram. Synonyms. Etavaneva. Please, so far, loka asmin, in this world, pumsham, of man, nishreyasa, final perfection of life, uddha, the attainment of, tivrena, intense, bhakti yogena, by practice of devotional service, mana, mai, in me, arpitam, fixed, sthiram, study. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Please repeat after me. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Here the words manomayarpitam, which means the mind being fixed on me, are significant. One should fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna or his incarnation. To be fixed steadily in that freedom is the way of liberation. Ambarish Maharaj is an example. He fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. He spoke only on the pastimes of the Lord. He smelled only the flowers and tulsi offered to the Lord. He walked only to the temple of the Lord. He engaged his hands in cleansing the temple. He engaged his tongue in tasting the foodstuff offered to the Lord. And he engaged his ears for hearing the great pastimes of the Lord. In that way, all his senses were engaged. First of all, the mind should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord, very steadily and naturally. Because the mind is the master of the senses. When the mind is engaged, all the senses become engaged. That is Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means controlling the senses. The senses cannot be controlled in the proper sense of the term. They are always agitated. This is true also with a child. How long can he be forced to sit down silently? It's not possible. Even Arjuna said, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. The mind is always agitated. The best course is to fix the mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. Manomayarpitam sthiram. If one seriously engages in Krishna consciousness, that is the highest perfectional stage. All Krishna conscious activities are on the highest perfectional level of human life. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 25th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. Translation again. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That's the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisance unto my spiritual master who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, the torchlight of knowledge. Sri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam Stapitam Nena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yatkrupa tamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hey Krishna. As I said, I have no qualification, but I'll try to share a few things which I have heard and read from our senior devotees and acharyas. So, very, very important verse. It is summum bonum of the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness, actually, if you see. So, here he Kapila Muni says that minds are fixed on the Lord, engaged in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Srila Prabhupada often addresses the intellectuals, the scientists, the philosophers or great so-called professors in MIT or Stanford. What does Prabhupada call them? They're ignorant. Because Prabhupada uses very strong words. Fools, rascals, ignorant. Because Prabhupada, in his own words, he says, they do not know who they are. They do not know what's the goal of life. Do not know what's going to happen after death. Isn't it? These are fundamental things. So Krishna consciousness philosophy is, to the roots, because otherwise we are getting carried away by the material world. Day in, day out, I'm talking about myself, karmis, we just struggle, we go like the renounced people, the sannyasis in Vrindavan and the Babajis, they go begging for alms. In 3 houses they go. If anything they get, they eat. If they don't get anything, they'll just fast. And what are we karmis doing? We struggle for 25, 30 years for degree, post-graduation, and then we prepare 1 page of resume and go begging from door to door. Like in this pandemic, we are seeing, like in this downfall of the economy, we are seeing so many people are impacted by layoffs. So what are they doing? They're going door to door looking for jobs. That's the nature of this material world. And His Holiness Devamrit Maharaj says in the UK, 60% of the employees, they get dreams about what? They get dreams about as if they're shooting their boss. 60%. And when he was sharing, so someone raised the hand and asked, what about the other 40%? Maharaj said, they're even daydreaming that, they want to shoot their boss. So that's the nature of this world, So here, in this specific word, which is very significant. Prabhupada is mentioning about mind fixed on me. What Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita 6.34, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, Pramadhi balavad dradam, tasyaham nigraham manye vayur ivasu dukshkaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Who is telling? The greatest warrior, the greatest disciple of Arjuna, Krishna. Arjuna is saying these words. And Prabhupada is starting the purport that, Manomayarpitam, the mind, which is very crucial. So as practicing devotees, we struggle to focus on the mind, every day. Because I get up a little late, but Shyam Kishore Prabhupada, the devotees, they get up very early and then the service. And then the real struggle comes when we are trying to chant, isn't it? It's a struggle or not? It's blissful, but it's a struggle. So as Grace Amaran Prabhu says, it's like a boxing ring. Boxing ring, what they count? 10 round, 1, isn't it? And then 10 round 2, like that, there are 13 rounds. For us, it is 16 rounds. It's like a boxing match. Who are you boxing against? Maya, mind. Isn't it? Struggle. So we start, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj says, if you cannot focus on the first 4 letters of the first syllable, then your round is gone. So we have to focus on each and every syllable, but it's a struggle, isn't it? It's like a boxing bout. We are fighting to win over mind. And by the time we are fighting, then 16 rounds are over. So then the struggle starts. But so do we leave? No. We have to be persistent, and then we'll continue. Because Arjuna himself is facing this problem. And what Krishna says? What Krishna's answer for this? Practice, abhyasa. And then, what the other one Krishna says? There are 2 things Krishna says. Abhyasa and vairagya, renunciation. Abhyas, practice, practice, practice. Actually, if we analyze the mind, so like the famous example, no, like the chariot, that example?
Which one, bro?
The chariot example where the 5 horses or the 5 senses. So the 5 senses are, leading. And then who is trying to control? The mind, the charioteer. And above the mind is, it's not the charioteer. It is the reins, which is the mind. And intelligence is the charioteer. And who is sitting in the chariot is the soul. Okay. So the senses are trying to go wayward. Then the mind is trying to control them. Who is instructing the mind? The intelligence has to be used. Otherwise, they will go wayward. And then the soul is the one who is directing the intelligence. So in this whole process, mind plays major role. Let's say like, you are diabetic. And the mind says like, you think like, oh, I would like, I'm desiring to eat rasagulla or rasmalai. I'm a fan of all milk sweets, so that's why I'm naming all the sandesh. So actually, are you thinking of, or your mind is saying that? It's actually the mind is telling. It is said, in Bhagavad Gita, mind can be your best friend or worst enemy. But most of the time, it acts as an enemy. And it is always with us. How difficult it is to be always with an enemy. Those people who are married, and if the couple are not going along, how difficult it is to stay in the same home, seeing each other. It's a war with looks, war with utensils, war with everything, words, everything. Yes, Mataji? So imagine our life living with the mind, our biggest enemy, because it's always trying to win over us. It tells you what is not favorable for Krishna consciousness, isn't it? A Bhagavatam class. Oh, forget about it. Like, let's sleep. Today is Sunday, weekend, no? Whole week we struggle, going to work. 2 days we get, so let's sleep. So it always tells, Sunday going to the Sunday feast. I mean, so many days it was winter. Now sunny. So let's go somewhere. It's a long weekend. Yeah. Nandan Prabhu is reminding us, Good Friday, Saturday, Sunday, long weekend. Shri Radha Gopi Janula Bhagwan ki, Thai Paditapan Gauri ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So the mind always is trying to take us away from Krishna consciousness. And mind uses all the senses. The senses by themselves are not, so actively pursuing what they want to. What is directing them? As the horses, the rein, wherever you want to go, the rein will direct. Then using the intelligence, the soul directs the intelligence like that. So here it is trying to tell the senses something which you should not see, something which should not eat, something which should not say, something which should not hear, something you should not touch. So, we heard so many times, the examples of some animals, how they are, attracted by the senses, that they are going into danger by using their senses. Like a deer, it likes to hear the sound. So they play, the hunter plays nice music, flute. Then the deer is attracted. Like that, the fireflies, they're attracted to the fire to the extent that they get burnt. The fish. What do they use? Bait, yeah, bait. And then it is attracted because it wants to taste that, the tongue. It uses the tongue. So similarly, we have seen the greatest of great sages are attracted like that. Vishwamitra Muni is a great example where he heard the tinkling bells of Menaka when he was in deep tapasya. Just heard the tinkling bells, the whatever you call that, anklets. anklet bulls. And same way, like Ajamil, great example, where he saw something which he is not supposed to, and how he got agitated and how his life got ruined. And Shaubari Muni, he was meditating under Yamuna. He was meditating under the water, controlling his breath for so long. And what he sees? 2 fish mating. And his focus gets disturbed. So whether it's the animal or, the greatest of rishis, what is our situation? It's difficult. So abhyasa is very important. It is said the mind is a chanchalam. And Kalidas has one famous verse which he was asked by the kings who he was serving to write with the makara about something which is chanchala. He writes, Ma mana madupa megho madhyapa markata marut makshika makkuno matsyo. These are the 10 things. Makara dasa sanchala. Ma means wealth. Lakshmi is chanchalam, isn't it? The wealth. Lakshmi means wealth. Wealth is always, it's not steady, isn't it? The $100 comes, you give it to grocery, isn't it? Then it goes to the supplier, then it goes to the manufacturers, like that. It travels, And mano, what we are reading, mind. Then madhupo, the honeybee, it keeps hopping from here. Megho, the clouds, they are not steady. They're always moving around. And then madhyapa means the person who has taken madhya. Madhya means liquor. The drunkard. He's never steady, isn't it? So he can't walk steadily. And markata, the monkey. That's why most of the time the mind is compared with the monkey. Not just ordinary monkey, very naughty monkey. Imagine a monkey. Monkey is always naughty. And to that monkey, if you feed him alcohol, what happens? It will become further naughty. And imagine you make him bitten by 100 scorpions. Then he'll become much more. So it is explained that mind is having that much chanchalam, agitated. It's not just a monkey. And marut means wind. The wind is always flowing around. We have seen, the tornadoes or, So I was listening to Radhanath Maharaj. He was mentioning the so-called leaders, they think they have everything in control. Isn't it? We have science is so advanced, everything. But then comes, we have seen in Turkey what happened recently. It was the reason. And then, now is the time for tornadoes. Midwest and in the middle of the country, like tornadoes. It comes, you don't see, the whole area is wiped out. So wind is so powerful. And then Shika, it is housefly. The fly also, housefly flies around. Matkuno, bedbug. I don't know how many of you had experience, but
Thank you, Lord. No.
no, okay. You're fortunate. I lived in places like in Mumbai where, I used to share accommodation with people when I was a bachelor, and it's horrible. When you switch off the light, they will come like attack. It happened in United States when I was, going for work. I stay in big hotels, in Marriott and, Hilton. I was staying in one of the Marriott hotels and it happened. The manager was so apologetic, and then they took away all my luggage and they bought me a new baggage. So because even one bedbug comes to your home, then you're gone. So they're also moving. And then matsyo, fish. It's a fish always it's not stable. So these are chanchala. So what is that? Which is chanchala here? Chanchala we are learning about is the mind. Very, very flickering always. So that's why Prabhupada is stressing that, And what is he saying? In this verse, we have to fix on the lotus feet of Krishna. Yesterday, His Grace Advait Prabhu wonderfully explained about the Bhakti Yoga and about what is What should be the perfection of life? Is to have to desire for the darshan of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yesterday he was mentioning about that. And so mind acts like, if we take the example in Ramayana, we have Ravan one side and we have Dasharatha on the other side. Ravan is called, he has 10-headed, isn't it? Dashanana. He has 10 heads. Ravan, demon. And Dasharatha, he can control the 10 horses. He is, in multi directions. He can fight in 10 directions. He can conquer 10 directions. 10 directions. East, west, south, north, and then southwest, northeast, like that, 4, and then top and bottom. So any direction. So even though Ravana has 10 heads, that means he should have very high intelligence, isn't it? One head, imagine like 10 heads. But all those are, our devotees, senior devotees explain, they are like, under the influence of senses. That means under the influence of the mind. His mind is not stable. His mind is not stable. Even though he has 10 heads, he is conquered by mind. Whereas Dashrath Maharaj, if we say that, let's imagine the 10 horses as 10 senses, 5 working senses and 4 knowledge acquiring senses. So all the 10 senses, he has control. What is that? Mind. He has control over the mind so that he can use his senses. Like in the example, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioning about Ambarish Maharaj. Who has used all his senses. Many of our acharyas quote this when it comes to devotional service. The perfection of devotional service is Ambarish Maharaj, because he has used all his senses in the service of the Lord. If you read the purport, like how he is seeing always the beautiful form of the Lord, how he is using his feet to go to the temple, hands to, bathe the deities or do the service, like that. Like that, chanting itself is a great thing where we are engaging all our senses. If you analyze, we are using the sense of touch. We are touching the holiest of holy Tulsi beads. We are using the sense of touch. And we are using the most voracious tongue, voice. Because this is very dangerous, isn't it? Because that's what on Prasadam prayers. The tongue is very voracious. That's why we are praying you to Krishna, please honor this bhoga and give us the remnants so that our senses can be purified. Isn't it? Mahaprasade Govinda. So that we are using in a chanting of the holy names. And we smell the incenses. When we come and chant, we have beautiful incense sticks, or beautiful flowers we offer to the Lord and give. And the eyesight we are using by looking at the beautiful form of Radha Gopijan Vallabha, Tribhanga, Krishna. And then we are engaging our ears. So what is the best way of chanting? Is to hear what you are chanting. Prabhupada says the best way of chanting is to hear what you are chanting. So that way, Yugal Kishore always says, like, you take this mantra, put it into the ears and take it into your heart. Take it, put it into your ears, take it into your heart. Actually, that works very well. I always try to do this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Even with the physical gesture. So because that gives some context, that gives some, for you to focus. So we are using, and also the mind, as in this verse we are saying, to focus on the lotus feet, the beautiful form, beautiful lotus feet of the Lord. So that is very important for us. And Dashrath is able to do that. Same way in Mahabharata, if you see, you have Duryodhan, you have other side, you have Dharmaraj, Yudhishthira. Duryodhan, he has all the opulences like Ravan has. Ravan has conquered everything. He has so many wives. He is he's so much gold, the gold palace, everything he has. But still, one thing which he is not able to control his mind, which has brought him all destruction, isn't it? Duryodhan, same way, he has all the opulences, isn't it? He is born like, he's a king, he's a princess, but still his mind is not under control. And because of which he brought destruction to the whole dynasty. Whereas on the other side, Yudhishthira, even though he was robbed of all the opulences, his wife, his brothers, all his kingdom, everything has gone. But since he is able to conquer his mind, he was successful internally and externally. So it is very important. Like I was listening, like the story of Riga, the king Riga, like the lizard story, how when the king Riga, just briefly, so when he's a very good king, was very following the karma kanda process, doing charity, doing, this yajna, that yajna. And so during his charities, he gives 1,000 cows to one of the Brahmins as a charity. Those days they used to give cows because cow is considered as very rich. So because it gives, the milk, ghee, yogurt, everything. So he gave. And unfortunately, one of the cows, it took the path back to the kingdom and it got mixed in his other cows. That he didn't know, the king didn't know. And on another day, he donated another 1,000 cows to another Brahmana. Unfortunately, the cow which has come back has gone to that Brahmana. So the first Brahman comes and asks, my cow, my cows has come to your palace again. So I want my cow back. So King Riga tries to find out where it is, and he finds out that it has gone to the other Brahmana. So he goes and requests him, can you please give me this? He says no, you gave me in charity. I'm not going to give it back. So then he goes and begs this Brahmana, I will give you 100,000 cows against one cow. Please accept it. It's my step. He didn't know. It is, without his knowing it happened. But still he was very apologetic. But the Brahmana said, no, you gave me in Dakshina, that one, charity. I want that cow back. So he goes to the other Brahman and says I will give you 100,000. Give me this cow. He says no, I already received this. I cannot give it back. So because of that small incident, even though he was leading all karmakandi, life, doing all pious things, when at the time of death, Yamaraj came, Yamadutas came and he said this is your account. You did all the great works. So you can spend millions of years in heavenly planets. But you did this one thing for which you have to suffer. So which one you prefer to go first? He is very intelligent. He chose to take the punishment first. Because if you are going in heavenly planet, and he already knew that after ending a fight, he has to suffer. So he intelligently thought, let me finish the suffering and then I will. So that should be our goal of our life also. No, because having taken this body, we have to go through all these miseries of this material world. But if we have the goal, as here it says, perfection of life is to engage our mind in the service of, or lotus feet of the devotees, Guru and Krishna, then we'll be able to enjoy that spiritual bliss in the service. So he goes through that. He has to suffer as a lizard in a well, in a dry well as a lizard. Many years he suffers. And then by the mercy of Krishna along with his friends, he comes, there as a picnic, and the boys, his friends, they saw this lizard, they want to rescue it. And by the touch of Krishna, is liberated. And on the other hand, Ambarish Maharaj, when we see, he's a great devotee of the Lord. He was practicing the Bhakti Yoga. And then he was attacked by who? Durvasmuni. Durvasa Muni, a sage comes to his palace, and then Amrish Maharaj, because king, and then he is a Muni, he wanted to serve him. And in that service, very briefly, because he wanted to serve him, but Durvasa Muni says, before I come back to honor the prasadam, I want to take bath in the river. He goes, he wants to take bath, but unfortunately at that point of a time, the Amrish Maharaj has to break his fast. Ekadasi, they give the timing before which you have to break the fast. So if he doesn't break, then he will not get that benefit of following Ekadasi, and he will incur the consequences. So he asks his advisors. The great says, they say, like, it is okay, you honor one drop, which is kind of, you're breaking the fast, at the same time you're not breaking the fast, but you are not offending. So he just takes one drop. But Durvasa Muni, by his senses, he can understand, oh, you offended me. Before I came, you took the prasad. Generally, when a guest comes, you have to give first prasad to the guest, then you honor it. So you broke this, and he pulls out one hair and it creates a demon to kill Amrish Maharaj. And who came to his rescue? The Lord has come to his rescue. Here also, it is a subtle mistake. And I was listening to His Holiness Radhanaswami Maharaj. He tells Amrish Maharaj also did this mistake unknowingly, and King Riga also did unknowingly. But King Riga had to go through the punishment for having that life of lizard for so many years. But whereas Amrish Maharaj was rescued by the Lord, he sends his Sudarshan Chakra to chase Durvasa Muni. Why is the difference? Maharaj explains, because he was following the process of Karma Kanda. Like, he's doing all the pious things. But whereas Amrish Maharaj, he is following the process of a Bhakti Yoga. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says, no, when you're practicing Bhakti, sometimes mistakes happen, but those are all taken care. Who takes care of that? Krishna himself. He is Rishikesh. Rishikesh means he is the master of the senses. We think masters, and with that we act individually. But whereas, who is the master? Krishna. So we have to depend on his mercy. We have to depend on his mercy. Radhanaswami Maharaj says, to control the senses means Gurur Hitam, that one should be engaged in the service of Guru and Krishna. Simply controlling the senses by force is very difficult. It's very difficult. So we have to control those urges. How? Sometimes I was listening to one of the lectures where it is said, blocks and pushes. Blocks means wherever Maya is trying to attack, put some, in India they have speed breakers. Even here, when in residential areas, they put speed breakers so that somebody, doesn't go fast. There'll be bumps on the road. So where you have to slow down. Imagine, like, if you go on the freeway, when you are about to go where you have to pay the toll. So before that, those strips, they put. So to alert you that, hey, you have to slow down because this toll gate is coming. Toll gate is coming where you have to pay the toll. So like that. So when Maya is trying to attack, you have to have these speed bumps where you have to tell, okay, I will attend to you, slow down. But whereas when it comes to devotional practice, it should be pushes. You have to push yourself because there will be so much resistance coming from the mind. Mind is trying to dictate, but you have to push yourself. I always tell Bhakti, you have to push yourself, coming to the temple because it's not easy. Prabhuji comes every day regularly and then he attentively listens. Why is that? It doesn't happen automatically. You have to push yourself, to get up in the morning, Shyam Kishore Prabhu, every day, Mangalarati. What is that? The determination. What is that? It's abhyasa, again and again. And again, another one, renunciation, what we are talking about. Maharaj says, renunciation is humility. Essentially, renunciation is about detachment from the false ego, because that is the seat of all other attachments. This is Maharaj is saying. He said, detachment is from the false ego because that is the seat of all the attachments. isn't it? Because always, boom, somebody instructs something. What comes first? The false ego comes first. Who is he to tell me? Isn't it? Who is she to tell me? Even within the devotees. When it is coming, it's coming as an instruction. And along with the instruction comes the ability to do. So we have to depend on the mercy of Guru and Krishna, Sadhu, Shastra. We have to, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. There are many things which I would like to share, but I think it's 9:07. I will take a pause, but I thank His Grace again, Shyam Kishore Prabhu, for this opportunity, because always when he gives a topic, when I prepare, it helps me to, some extent, a little bit of tiny purification of my false ego. So I humbly pray at the lotus feet of all of you to please keep me in your prayers so that I can progress and be humble, and I make efforts in the abhyasa and then in the renunciation. Thank you very much. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? Yes. Abhyasa and renunciation is what Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita. So the practice means practicing devotional service. Practicing devotional service. So that verse is, which is that verse? It is 6.36 or something, 35 or 36. Okay. So practicing devotional service means what? The 9 limbs of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Swaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. In which the primary things is Shravanam and Kirtanam. Obviously, like Vishnu Smaranam. And then devotional service. That's why Prabhupada translated, this one as one time Prabhupada asked his disciples, who is a disciple? He said he's a servant. The disciple asked, what does the disciple means? Means servant. Prabhupada said, no, it is menial servant. Prabhupada always, adds meaning to that, because he didn't translate, bhakti as devotion, devotional service, because there is some action involved there. So, abhyasa, how we do that is in the association of devotees. See, that is very important. We cannot isolate it. We think that I can be somewhere and then, practice Krishna consciousness. It doesn't happen. Because amongst the devotees, you may be amongst the devotees, but you can make this place as a Lanka. Or you may be in the no association, nothing. Sometimes, you are thrown, sometimes job puts you in some place where there is, I know one doctor's family who were living for 15 years in Gross Point. And they never had visited Devasudan Mandir. And I met them in Kansas when I was working in Topeka, Kansas, on a very wintry night, snow, and she drove 3 hours for a satsang program with Prabhupada disciples. There's a place called Lawrence in Topeka, near Topeka. I was attending there with Prabhupada disciples, and she came. And she said, when I said I'm from Detroit, she said, oh, I was also from Detroit. And so I asked, naturally, where were you living? In Gross Point. So did you go to there? So then she said, no. 15 years, and she was repenting. She was thrown away someplace. She has to drive 3 hours in snow with her kid to come and attend the satsang. Sometimes we take the things for granted. Like the famous example for Ramayana, where Vibhishan, being in Lanka amongst all the devotees, he made that place Ayodhya by chanting Ram's names. Whereas Kaikeyi, being in Ayodhya, she made that place Lanka in a moment, isn't it? Ram is supposed to be coronated. Imagine what happened. The moment it changed, and he's going to forest. He's not being coronated. Dashrath Maharaj was so happy Ram is getting coronated. And what happened? Suddenly, things changed. It became so demoniac, the atmosphere, so inauspicious that he had to leave his body. Sita Mata, she is supposed to be, enjoying in the palace, but she had to accompany to the forest. Bharat Maharaj, he is supposed to be happy with, relatives. He was at this place, but he is blamed for all this. Everything changed because of the association, bad association with Mandara. Whereas there in Lanka, even though Vibhishan is there in Lanka, he made that. So association makes very important role. Proper association. What I said is maybe we are in the midst of the devotees, but if we are not able to control our mind and properly taking essence from each of the people, rather than looking at fault finding or envious, out of all the anarthas, envy has no place in the spiritual world. You can use lust in Krishna's service. You can use greed in Krishna's service. You can use anger in Krishna's service. But envy, no. Envy means N and V, no vacancy in spiritual world. So we have to be practicing devotional service, basically, association, of course, chanting of the holy names, obviously. So that is abhyasa and renunciation. When you practice that, you don't need to forcibly renounce, as Maharaj is saying like that here. So when you practice, detachment all automatically happens. Whether we notice or don't notice, other people will notice. And the benefit we reap, just not you. People who are with you also get benefit. Shivananda the same. He was showing mercy on a dog, isn't it? He was, so merciful on a dog, he was trying to take care of the dog. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because it is associating with a pure devotee, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the dog. So not only you are benefited by practicing this, but the people who are around, even though they are not directly practicing, they will get benefit. Okay, Prabhu, I have to leave. I have another appointment, but if you have any other questions, you can ask Shyam Kishore Prabhuji. He is my guru. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna. Thank you, people who joined online. As I said, if you have any questions, you can post. And then, any questions? Okay. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam Gaya, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.